Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host. And this is where I would like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. This time, I want to take a look at Elfquest #1 from Marvel Comics Epics line. Before I talk about that, I want to mention a couple of YouTube channels that I like, and I want to mention to you. One is Wits End. It's a podcast that they present on YouTube, and also has individual videos as well. It's Wits End. And the other is Retro Marvel Man. I think that about says it all for that one. Okay, in Elfquest. Okay, as I said, Elfquest is Epic. And okay, Epic was, for those who may not be aware, was Marvel's in the 80s and 90s. Marvel Comics had the Epic line, which was a line of creator-owned titles. And of course, this is Elfquest #1 from 1985 by Wendy and Richard Pini. That's Pini. And Elfquest is a fantasy comic creation of Wendy and Richard Pini. In 1978, it's when they had their first comic. There's a story of a tribe of elves as they struggle to survive on a primitive Earth-like planet, which is known as the World of Two Moons. It was one of the first comic book series to have a planned conclusion, and published by the Pennies from Warp Graphics, then reprinted by Marvel Comics Eclipse line, and it was later printed by reprinted by DC Comics and Dark Horse. All issues from before 2014 are available online, so I understand. And the first issue was originally published in Fantasy Quarterly magazine, but with poor quality printing and paper, the Pennies then formed Warp Graphics to continue publishing their book. In the 90s, Warp exploded, publishing several concurrent titles taking place in several time periods on the planet. And so yeah, this is the Elfquest, the Epic. The Epic issue, #1. I had several others, but I only recently acquired this issue, issue 1. Now, they were originally printed in the Warp Graphics Elfquest magazine-sized format, and they were all black and white. You can see that nice artwork there. And then later reprinted in this format. Large, thick, on heavy stock paper with painted covers. And of course, these had painted covers as well. And then sometimes have stuff on the back featuring the characters, some of the characters, and the whole Elfquest world. It just grew and grew and grew. A larger cast, larger thing, and in addition to being published as these comics, and when the original Elfquest story that starts here was written as a prose novel by Richard Pini, and Wendy was the artist, and they co-plotted the stories together. And they had a novel, which I have someplace, at least one copy of, and they even got an audio version of that novel, which I also have someplace. And the Elfquest is a lot of fun. Now, it's not exactly the fantasy of type of like J.R.R. Tolkien or the D&D stuff. Nor is it stuff that is similar to other stuff similar to the Norse legend or Robert E. Howard's Sword and Sorcery. And of course, the main characters are all elves, but these are not the Tolkien-esque tall elves, nor are they the like the Christmas elves one associates with Santa Claus, because they're not the tall, slender elves, but their ancestors were like that. They are diminutive, but not the little Santa's elves. They're about halfway in between that size. A little larger than like Santa's elves, but not as large as the high elves. For those who are unfamiliar, and Wendy Pini had a very lovely art style, and slightly cartoonish stylization, and very nice way of storytelling, panel to panel continuity, and characterization. Each character looks distinctively and individual, and very consistent in the art throughout the run. So let's take a little look inside. Yep, there you can see it. And a very dramatic cover illustration. So it starts right in. We see that there's fire and flight, and we see the primitive humans on this planet. Then in the midst of a ceremony, and in the midst of the ceremony, we get a flashback. I always get the frogs here as I'm speaking. We get the flashback to the even more primitive version of these humans. And then something happened, and this beautiful palace came through a hole in the firmament, and they landed on this mountain, in which the high elves, the taller high elves, came out of. And out of fear, the humans, well, instead of becoming friendly as the elves were trying to be, they were fearful and attacked these strangers, and slaughtering many of them until the high elves they rushed into the forests and dispersed across the planet. But then this is a good transition here. You see these two of the high elves as they are cowering and hiding in the woods, and then the image transitions to the present day of the story, in a similar position, but they're not cowering and fearful. And then we find that one of the elves has been captured by the humans. The humans think that they are demons because they have some magical powers. They are telepathic. They can depending on their particular talents, they can like some of them can like form, cause the plants to grow and form, and various other things. So here's this elf, Redlance, and there's Cutter and his friend Skywise. They're observing because they were out all hunting together, and they're about to have the humans are about to sacrifice the elf, and they've got the wolf riders. Now these elves, they're forest dwelling, they're hunters, and they are wolf riders. They have a connection to the wolves. They are friends, and they ride the wolves as not just steeds, but as actual friends. They are each mentally connected to their animals. And they rush down, fight. They do threaten, and he does. I think he does wind up killing one of the humans. Just as he was about to kill his friend Redlance, threaten the others, save Redlance, and head off home. You can see the lovely, very beautiful artwork, and nice job on coloring in this book. And you can see each individual elf has a distinct look to them. Gets Redlance home to his mate. And meanwhile, and they are relieved that no one was killed. Meanwhile, the humans are in mourning for one of their numbers who was killed, and they go on the offensive while they're talking and bickering at home about going off alone to hunt. Then Cutter and Skywise are talking. Skywise is the wise elf. And Cutter is the chief, and Skywise is his counselor. So then they discover the humans the wolf comes up and tells them telepathically that the humans are attacking and they have fire. And Cutter is sending telepathic messages of warning to his other members of his tribe. They confront the humans, who sets fire to the forest, regardless of the fact that it's going to destroy their lives as well. They leave their home, which is called the Holt, gather everyone together, and they rush before the flames. They try to find refuge. They go to the cave of the trolls, and you can see the troll right there, clanging on the entrance. And as it's open, they do. While they're not necessarily friendly, they do have trading relations with the trolls. They slam open the door and tell them the forest is on fire and they're seeking refuge, but they're taking it. They take refuge. Here we're introduced to Picknose, who is a recurring character. He's not happy seeing the elves, and then they're at sword point. Forces them to take them down into the depths of the mountain, and they're finally to be led to Greymung, the shiftless, mighty king of the trolls. And that is the end of this first issue of Elfquest. And of course, they wound up going through the mountain, and they're on the run. They're seeking a new home. They cross the desert. They find another tribe of elves who are living a lot like some of the Native Americans in the American Southwest desert lived. And they take refuge there, have more adventures, internal conflicts, etc. And find love, have children, etc., etc., for many years. And just a series of adventures over years and years and years until the children they have grow up and become the leaders of the tribe. So that's what I've got this time to show you with Elfquest #1. Thank you for joining me. I'll have a follow-up sometime in the future. Thank you for joining me. Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Are you a fan of the Pini's Elfquest? Let me know. Are there things that you like about the elves and things that you don't like about the elves? Or about the books, or any of the other titles that Warp published in the Elfquest line back in the 90s and such. Let me know. I'd like to know. And remember, people, comics are art.